Congress taking quick action, approving a $13 billion deal to help Ukraine.
I'm announcing another $800 million to further augment Ukraine's ability to fight in the east, in the Donbass region.
The U.S. have announced new military assistance for Ukraine. They've promised an extra $713 million.
In Washington, the Senate overwhelmingly passing a new $40 billion Ukraine aid bill.
The U.S. is sending an additional $700 million in military aid to Ukraine.
President Biden announced yesterday the U.S. is sending an additional $1 billion in weapons and aid to Ukraine.
The Pentagon announcing today it's sending a new $450 million military package to Ukraine.
The U.S. sending an additional $400 million in military aid to Ukrainian forces.
The United States is sending another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine.
A new aid package is going to be announced tomorrow, including an additional $3 billion.
The White House now asking Congress for more than $13 billion in additional military aid.
Well, the Biden administration preparing to send another $600 million military package to Ukraine.
And the U.S. is sending another round of military aid for Ukraine. Included in the $1.1 billion package are 18 HIMARS launchers.
The United States has announced a new military aid package for Ukraine worth $725 million.
Today, the department is announcing the authorization of the 24th presidential drawdown of security assistance valued at up to $275 million. The department is announcing approximately $400 million in additional security assistance for Ukraine.
The White House is also asking for $37.7 billion to fund the war in Ukraine.
Washington was sending a $275 million aid package to Ukraine.
The bill includes a major boost for military spending, also nearly $45 billion in aid to Ukraine.
The United States will demonstrate our continued enduring commitment to Ukraine's ability to defend itself with the announcement of over $3 billion in new military assistance to Ukraine.
The meeting comes as the U.S. unveils a $2.5 billion military assistance package for Ukraine.
The United States has announced new military aid package for Ukraine. The package worth $2.2 billion.
His meeting with President Zelensky short but significant, with the United States providing another $500 million in military aid.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen announced Washington will provide another $10 billion in assistance to Kyiv.
The United States announced a new military aid package for Ukraine worth $400 million.
The authorization was the 34th drawdown of equipment from DoD inventories for Ukraine since August 2021 and is valued at up to $350 million.
The U.S. is providing even more aid at a key moment, approving another multi-billion-dollar package to Ukraine.
As Kyiv prepares new units of border guards, the White House has announced a new $325 million package.
The U.S. is set to announce a $1.2 billion aid package to Ukraine as early as today.
And the counting error at the Pentagon overvalued U.S. aid sent to Ukraine by $3 billion. The error could result in the U.S. sending more weapons to help in the war against Russia.
Well, today, President Biden is expected to announce a new $375 million military aid package for Ukraine.
The U.S. announced that it will send another $300 million worth of military aid to Kyiv.
The Biden administration has announced its new $2.1 billion military aid package for the war-torn Ukraine.
The U.S. has announced another $325 million in military aid for Ukraine.
The Pentagon says that they overvalued the military aid sent to Ukraine by more than $6 billion, which basically says this means they can send more.
The Pentagon has just announced $500 million in additional security aid for Ukraine.
Now, this latest aid package, $800 million.
Today, I am pleased to announce an additional $250 million in new funding for Agri-Ukraine.
The Department of Defense announced a new security assistance package to support the people of Ukraine.
Today, I also would like to announce that the United States will provide more than $500 million.
The U.S. Department of Defense had announced $400 million in additional security assistance for Ukraine.
President Biden is asking Congress for $24 billion in defense aid for Ukraine.
The White House announcing brand new military aid to Ukraine. The new package, which was previously authorized, includes about $200 million in military equipment.
The Biden administration has announced it will send an additional $250 million in weapons and ammunition to Ukraine.
We turn now to Ukraine, where U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Kyiv on an unannounced visit to Ukraine, expected to announce a new package worth more than $1 billion in U.S. aid for Ukraine.
The Pentagon has announced a new security assistance package worth $175 million.
Today, the department announced a new security assistance package through the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative to support Ukraine's battlefield needs. This $600 million package includes equipment to augment Ukraine's air defenses.
Welcome back. The United States is giving Ukraine an additional $325 million in military aid.
The money pit. If they've got what it takes, it's going to take everything they've got.